In recent years, Portugal has become one of the most talked about countries for people thinking about moving abroad. From beautiful coastal towns and historic cities to a relaxed lifestyle and warm climate, Portugal often appears on lists of the best places in Europe to live. Thousands of foreigners, especially from the United States, Canada, and other Western countries, are now choosing Portugal as their new home. At first glance, it sounds like the perfect destination. Lower living costs, stunning landscapes, welcoming culture, and a slower pace of life that many people feel is missing in larger cities around the world. But the reality of living in Portugal is more complex than most travel videos suggest. Because while Portugal offers many advantages, there are also certain challenges and adjustments that newcomers often discover only after they arrive. And understanding both sides, the pros and the cons, is the best way to decide whether living in Portugal is truly the right choice. Some people move to Portugal and quickly fall in love with the lifestyle. Others find that adapting to a new culture and way of life takes more time than they expected. So if you're curious about what life in Portugal is really like, here are some of the biggest pros and cons that many foreigners experience when they decide to live there. Let's start with one of the reasons that attracts so many people to Portugal in the first place: the quality of life. One of the first things many newcomers notice is how different the rhythm of everyday life feels compared to many large cities in other countries. Life in Portugal often moves at a slower, more relaxed pace. People spend more time outdoors. Cafes are full of conversation, and evenings often include long meals with friends or family. For many foreigners, this lifestyle creates a feeling of balance that they may not have experienced before. But while the slower pace of life is one of the biggest advantages of living in Portugal, it can also become one of the first surprises for newcomers who are used to faster systems and schedules. And that leads us directly to one of the first cons of living in Portugal. And this is where many people start to notice something they didn't expect. Because while Portugal's slower lifestyle can feel peaceful and refreshing, it can also affect how things actually get done. Simple processes like paperwork, banking, or even scheduling appointments can take longer than many foreigners are used to. In some cases, things that might take a few hours elsewhere could take days or even weeks. And for people coming from fast-paced systems, this can quickly become frustrating. But here's where things get interesting. Because for many people, this slowness is not entirely negative. Over time, some foreigners begin to adjust and even appreciate the reduced pressure and more relaxed expectations. So what feels like a problem at first can slowly become part of the lifestyle they were actually looking for. Now, here's something most people don't realize before moving. Around this point in your decision, many expats start questioning whether Portugal is really as affordable as they thought. Because while Portugal is often described as a low-cost country, the reality depends heavily on where you choose to live. In cities like Lisbon and Porto, rent prices have increased significantly in recent years. Apartments in central areas can be surprisingly expensive, especially compared to local salaries. However, if you move outside major cities, the cost of living can drop dramatically. Smaller towns and less tourist-heavy areas offer much more affordable housing and a quieter lifestyle. This creates a very important decision for anyone planning to move. Do you choose convenience and city life or lower costs and a slower, quieter environment? And this decision alone can completely change your experience of living in Portugal. Another major advantage that attracts people is the safety. Portugal is consistently ranked as one of the safest countries in Europe. Many foreigners mention feeling comfortable walking around, even at night. In most areas, this sense of security is one of the reasons families and retirees find Portugal especially appealing. But even with all these positives, there is one factor that surprises many newcomers the most, and it's something that can affect your daily life more than you expect. And that final factor is something many foreigners don't fully understand until they actually start living in Portugal: the cultural adjustment. Even though Portugal is welcoming and many people speak English, it is still a different culture with its own habits, expectations, and way of life. From how businesses operate to how people communicate, things don't always work the same way as they do in countries like the United States or Canada. For example, opening hours can be different. Customer service may feel less urgent, and certain systems may not be as digital or fast as what some foreigners are used to. At first, these differences can feel confusing or even frustrating. But over time, many people begin to see things from a different perspective, because what initially feels like inconvenience can actually be part of a lifestyle that is less stressful and more balanced. And this is where Portugal creates a very unique experience. Because for many people, the pros and cons are closely connected. The slower pace of life can be both relaxing and challenging. Lower costs can exist, but only in the right locations. A peaceful lifestyle can be rewarding, but requires adjustment. And that's the truth about living in Portugal. It's not perfect, but for many people, it offers something they can't find anywhere else. A chance to live differently, a chance to slow down, and a chance to focus more on quality of life instead of constant pressure. For some, that trade-off is absolutely worth it. For others, it may not be the right fit. And that's why understanding both the pros and the cons is so important before making the decision to move. Now we'd like to hear from you. If you had the opportunity, would you choose to live in Portugal or stay where you are? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoy videos about living abroad, travel, and the realities of moving to places like Portugal, make sure to subscribe for more. Because sometimes, the biggest life changes begin with a simple question: what if you tried something different?